It's a classic puck review
with the Jet Beta and Robbie too.
It's a classic puck review.
We'll hop in ice and bully, show a game for you.
So tip up your sticks and lace up your skates. No matter the element, matter the place.
Classic puck review.
So many hot takes, no topics taboo.
Classic puck review.
From Gretzky to Orr, Robbie Hull to Lemieux.
Performing CPR, a Lehman Sports podcast.
Hello, welcome to another special edition, or should I say a special edition of CPR. I'm Robbie, with me are Mr. Beta, Mr. Derek. I don't know if you guys are aligned the same way I am, so that might look weird. But today we aren't reviewing games. Today we're reviewing jerseys. Specifically, we're counting down our favorite and our least favorite jerseys. Plus, we're adding in some jerseys we think fly under the radar and, you know, kind of underappreciated / underrated. You guys can have your pick of that. Gentlemen, how are you feeling about this? Do you have any particular criteria? I know for me, it's just jerseys I love to look at, jerseys I hate to look at, makes me feel a way about them. So feel free to kind of break down your individual criteria, if you will.
Yeah, my criteria was basically just jerseys I think look cool and or love for various different reasons. And that was about it. And then like the most hated jerseys, I was just like, honestly, they're just ones that I'm like, I just remember these were just trash. They look like crap. I would never want to wear them. I understand why Mike Keenan didn't let his team wear it. Things like that. And then the underrated ones, I'm kind of just, they were just like, you know what? It's like, they wouldn't necessarily be my favorite jerseys, but maybe for some bizarre reason, they have like a little special place in the heart for them, but maybe they're not at the top. I do think, though, as we're counting down as our top five, bottom five jerseys here, whatever, do we need to have do we call them jerseys or sweaters? Like, where do you guys fall on that debate?
I definitely call them sweaters.
But you just opened the podcast by calling them jerseys.
No, I mixed that up. I definitely call them jerseys.
Okay.
I call them jerseys.
Beta?
Either or, really. Unlike you guys, beauty or homeliness is in the eye of the beholder for sure. And unlike when we did top defensemen or top goaltenders, where there is a lot of, basically when it came down to it, our top five were pretty congruent. Jerseys are totally subjective. It totally is in the eye of how you see it. I myself, my criteria isn't too much more robust, but I did think about the eras in which certain teams wore them. Did they have any success? Did the hideousness or the beauty of the jerseys play into the lore of how their franchise was at the time? And were there any notable players that I loved that wore them for the respective periods of which they kind of coincided with their career? But overall, it is pretty much just about, did they look sexy or did they look ugly? So I'm curious to see if we agree or have totally different tastes in uniforms, fellas. Uniforms, that's a whole other way to say it. Uniforms.
I feel like uniform is more baseball type thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
I feel
whole ensemble. Like, let's say, and I didn't think of this, but let's say like there was green colored gloves for the Minnesota Wild. That's part of the uniform. It's not just the jersey. But if we're going straight jerseys, which I did, and I think you did as well, sweaters, uniforms, jerseys, tops, kits, whatever you want to call them.
Are you guys okay if I lead us off real quick?
Show us how it's done, man.
You look like you really want to lead us off real quick. So
tell me what I want to hear.
Arguing here.
So, I mean, I'm wearing, and this is number one for me, I'm wearing my favorite jersey. It's the block leaf sweater, blue specifically, from, I guess, 82 to 2016. They rocked with this logo. I don't care about the variation as long as this logo's on it. That's what I want on this jersey. So that's one that I grew up with specifically. I like the other variations of the logo for the Leafs, the more refined, the more finesse leaf, I guess, the more veiny leaf, really. But I like this. This is a symbolic leaf. It's strong, it's solid, it's pure. The lettering is same thing. It makes you think of a team like in the early 90s, Wendell Clark, Doug Gilmore, you know, just a solid, successful team, and they continued that tradition throughout. And then they eventually had to get rid of it to rebrand. So this is my favorite jersey. I'm wearing it. The block leaf. Great era of hockey for, well, not really great era of hockey.
That's pretty good. It was a pretty good era. It wasn't terrible.
Mostly downs, some ups, but mostly downs. But it's a great jersey. I love it. And my most hated jersey, my number one most hated jersey. I look at this jersey and I feel a lot of different emotions. One, it makes me, when I see the red, it makes me kind of want to jerk. Makes me, I have a history of aneurysms in my family. So it kind of makes me think like I might have one when I look at it. When I see the stupid logo, like the C and the H, I'm just like, what the fuck is that? It's just a dumb overall composition. I think a lot of people like it because it's synonymous with success, but I think if you really break down the jersey, it's an ugly jersey. It's stupid looking. What they did with the reverse, retro reverse jersey bullshit, where it's flipped, again, stupid, looks terrible. And my worst, most hated jersey is the Montreal Canadiens jersey. Every single one. Doesn't matter which one. Beta, do you have any issue with that?
It's kind of like when you stumble upon your father's old Playboy magazine collection for the first time and you're like, I shouldn't be looking at this, but I'm so curious. I feel like that's what you're really trying to tell me. You're trying to tell me that you don't want to lay and feast your eyes on greatness, great, sexy imagery of the C and the H, and everything you just said to me just tickles me senseless. And I'm not going to slander your team. Maple Leafs jerseys, phenomenal. No other jersey like it. Original franchise of the league, like dating back to the arenas, 1917. That same franchise that went through the St. Pat's, which are equally just as cool. And when they finally settled on the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1927, and kind of basically by the original six era had that color scheme of just the hard blue, various Leaf logos, have you? I'm not going to slander it. It's very nice. But Montreal Canadiens and all their success, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, synonymous with greatness. And I don't think it's ugly in the slightest. And I hope you have an aneurysm.
See,
I think, sorry, Derek, but I think it's synonymous with pretentiousness. And to me, when I look at this sweater, I think of Canada, I think of Toronto, and I think of heart, baby. That's what I think. So there we go.
I didn't come on this podcast episode to debate Leafs versus Habs with you. It's so funny how you wanted to set the tone. And everyone listening at home, Robbie wanted to say his favorite and least favorite first. I wanted to go 5 down. And Robbie's like, I want to get the good stuff out of the way. I'm just going to slander Montreal. I'm going to raise Toronto. Oh, like it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder talk. Come on now.
You know what? At least Robbie has the sense of pride to wear his jersey on the show. That is, I don't see let's look. What is that? Ralph Lauren shirt that you're wearing there, buddy? Like
when he looks at the Leafs jerseys, he thinks of Canada. The Montreal Canadiens doesn't remind him of Canada anyway.
No, not Canadians. Canadiens. That only represents a fraction of what this country is.
And then, they only wanted the French players, whereas did Toronto just segregate themselves and only take English players? Pretty much, yeah.
Hey man, you have to work.
Anyway, Leafs jersey's great. I have no issue with that. I don't appreciate bullying and slander on this episode, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Anyway, my favorite jersey is neither the Leafs or Habs, because I'm not going to be mean. My favorite jersey I wore a couple episodes ago. It is the original Hartford Whalers NHL jersey from 1979 that they wore in this stripe pattern through the mid 80s. So Gordie Howe in his return to the NHL in 1979-80 after the New England Whalers became the Hartford Whalers, name change in 1979 after the WHA folded. So that original jersey, the green one I'm speaking of specifically, their road jersey at the time, because back between the late 60s to the early 2000s, you typically wore white at home. So the colored jerseys were more or less when you're the visiting team, as is this example, the green one, which I was wearing, that has the phenomenal logo that it uses negative space so well. One of the finest designed logo. You said his name was like Larry Good or something, Derek. You told me that.
Oh, I did tell you that. And if you want to know, go back and watch that episode, or sit here for 5 minutes while I scroll through my notebook and figure out what that guy's name was again.
Just the Hartford Whalers
I'm
logo
blanking
on
on
the
it right now.
crest, the H, which they use with just the green negative space, with the W enclosed, and then the whale's tail. Just a fine logo. There's some blue and white stripes going down the base. The cuff of the sleeve is white with a blue stripe as well, and you got Pucky the whale on your shoulders. As far as success, the Whalers didn't really have much success. I don't even think they won a playoff series when they had this inaugural version of the jersey, but names like Howe and Bobby Hull wore that jersey really briefly in '79, and Dave Keon, some legends wore it, and it's a fine jersey. And I have that Gordie Howe with the full name on the back of the jersey because Mark Howe was playing as well. That's my favorite jersey ever, just in terms of how they use the negative space. I like green. Green's a pretty cool color. Stripe pattern was nice. Wearing a lot of jerseys in the 80s that really used the stripe and the shoulder kind of as well as the Whalers did, at least. Really, really cool. And my least favorite, and I don't know, maybe this will come up in yours, maybe not, but a lot of people regard it as one of the ugliest jerseys in the history of the NHL. It is the alternate jersey that the Nashville Predators used in the early 2000s, throughout the mid 2000s. I think 01 to 07 they used the mustard color, like booger, basically. I call it the booger jersey that had that kind of alternate Predator logo with the saber tooth. Looks all animated. It looks kind of stoned. It's yellow-eyed, just hideous. And the color, like Nashville Predators logo and color scheme at the time, the brighter yellow, that's cool. But this booger mustard color with like the weird kind of silver and blue slashes on the cuff and the tongue and the saber tooth logo, just disgusting. And they didn't have any success wearing it. A lot of fans were irritated by it. The players didn't like it, especially when they sweat as well. They're kind of slid along the ice. It would turn even more boogery. Just disgusting. Steve Sullivan had to put up with that. That's a good old Timmins boy. Oh,
Yeah, I don't have either on my lists, whether love or hate. I kind of figured you'd choose the Hartford jersey, though, just because I know you do have a soft spot for that. I don't hate the jersey, just not one of the jerseys that I think of. Like when I think of hockey jerseys, just kind of, great jersey, but it's just not.
I think the thing with the Hartford jersey, I mean, I like especially like the old school one, like the color scheme's great, but I think the thing that puts it really over the top is it just hasn't one of the best logos in sports history.
mhm.
And it's like the logo is the thing that puts it over the top versus like the design of the rest of the jersey, I guess.
Yeah.
But I still think it's amazing. If we did like top 10, I'd probably have Hartford in there, but we didn't do top 10. I have it as like an honorable mention thing.
Nice.
I had the Preds jersey as an honorable mention for my bad ones.
Dishonorable mention?
I guess dishonorable mention. Yeah.
Cool.
So we're kind of on the same wavelength.
All right. So my jersey. So when I was kind of looking at this, I was kind of trying to scroll through a bunch of hockey jerseys to try to like narrow this down. And I've determined that 1993-94 is the peak of all hockey jerseys. So this list is very 93-94 heavy. And at least for my best ones, be a mix in, but most of it's 90s. 90s is, I guess, when I like grew up, started falling in love with the game of hockey, right? So a lot of love for what teams wore in the 90s. 93-94 is the peak of this. And I, much like Robbie, have decided to wear what I would consider my favorite jersey of all time. So it is, of course, the classic, the original, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim jersey. I love both the white one and the purple one. The eggplant and jade ones. So the jade one or the white one and the eggplant one. I think I do have like a little bit more love for the white one, just because that was the one that they actually used in the Mighty Ducks movies, which I think if you are a kid or a hockey fan that was born somewhere between like 85 and like 99, you kind of grew up with the Mighty Ducks movies. And, as much as I did grow up a Leaf fan, I feel like the Mighty Ducks were like a huge influence on just me becoming a hockey fan in general, especially with some guys like Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne. They were unreal, and they had the best looking uniforms in the NHL. And I'm saying uniforms, Beta, because I'm taking in the whole head to toe thing right now. And yeah, they're just amazing, both for like the nostalgicness of the Mighty Ducks movie franchise and the fact that, I mean, like, just look at the logo. Like, no team has ever matched how cool this logo is. The duckbill goalie mask, the sticks crossing. It's amazing. It's just, I don't know. To me, it's just absolutely flawless. A little bit of the nostalgia thing. I'm so sad that they lost that Game 7 in 2003, just because I wanted the image of like Paul Kariya lifting the cup wearing this. Like this beautiful jersey, but we never got it.
And they would have
Which
been wearing
brings me-
that very color jersey too, Game 7 of 03.
Yeah, exactly.
That would have been
Which
it.
brings me to my worst list is everything that this franchise has worn since they changed their name. That is since Disney sold the team and they just dropped it and they became the Anaheim Ducks, which is already even more boring than the Mighty Ducks. And they started wearing the black, tan, and orange color combination with just ducks written in like lame handwriting across the chest. And then even now I find it annoying that they tease it coming back every so often. Where they'll put this majestic logo on like some crappy orange and tan color scheme. Bring these back, Anaheim.
Come on, Samuelis. Yeah.
Dude, we're at the exact same, because on mine 2 and 2 for my next picks would have been that exact same jersey, except white, because I love the Disney version a little bit better.
Yeah, I honestly put this on. I think the white one's better, but I own this one.
Right.
So this one was easier to wear during the show.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I completely agree with you on both sides, because not only is that logo, that jersey synonymous in a way, like with our childhood, right?
Yeah, for sure.
In more ways than one, because of the movies, because of like the dynamic teams that they had in the early 2000s and even the late 90s. Like, they were such an interesting team to watch, interesting team to cheer for. The underdog story, Paul Kariya, the ultimate underdog player, really. But yeah, I love the logo, nostalgia up the ass. And then on top of that, I put down specifically for my number 2 most hated jersey of all time was the 06-07 ending of an era bullshit that they came back with.
And they won the cup that year too, which is even more. And it's honestly, it is the ugliest jersey that has ever been in a Stanley Cup photo, without a doubt.
It doesn't look like a proper hockey jersey. It looks like something you come up with in a beer league or something like that, where there's zero thought given into it. It's just ducks. There's no actual logo. It's terrible. It's horrible. I agree with you.
You don't think the D in Ducks is that
trash
kind of paw thing?
No. Don't even try to defend it.
It's awful compared to what you're wearing right now, for sure.
Yeah,
I've seen worse, but it's ugly to wear having a cup photo. I'm thinking
too, like, didn't like a year or two ago they kind of brought back the color scheme like with this, and it's like, just do that full time.
Yeah.
No one, honestly, like Anaheim, like no one likes what you wear now. Like no one does.
I definitely hate the orange on the side more than I hate the ones that they wore when they won the cup, though.
I literally, when I wrote down my list for the worst jerseys, I just wrote Anaheim Ducks, all of them. That was what I wrote, because I felt bad if I were to actually do my top 5 least favorite jerseys. All the top 5 would just be the Ducks jerseys, and they would be every Ducks jersey that they've worn since these.
And you're so right. It's almost sacrilege to put that logo on those orange pieces of shit.
I know, it's terrible.
Horrible.
It's brutal.
So Beta, I've already said mine. Those are my 2.
Fair enough. Well, look at that overlap. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. I do have a Duck thing coming up soon, but I'll get to that in due time.
It's a Mighty Duck thing, and it's on your worst jersey. Just know we're ending this podcast, and I'm coming over to fight you.
Oh, okay. My second favorite, so I went very, very classic here, and the simplicity, but the lore behind it can't be denied. It's basically the jerseys home and away that Detroit wore between the 40s pretty much until the Dead Wings era, because they did wear the same jerseys all the way pretty much since, with mild variations. But that home and away pair, just with the wing wheel, some people don't understand the logo, some people aren't a huge fan of it. It took me forever to kind of really appreciate it myself, but you see these logos growing up when you're just figuring out teams. I vividly recall, because when I grew up playing minor hockey just on the outskirts of Timmins in this kind of, I wouldn't call it a suburb, but a municipality of Timmins called Schumacher, which is actually where the Mahavliches were born. The kind of minor hockey in Schumacher we wear jerseys molded after the Red Wings, called Schumacher Day wings or what have you. It's kind of the same scheme, very simple, red and white. And they had banners in the rink of all the NHL teams at the time, and these specific banners in question are kind of the mid to late '90s ones. So I'd always go watch my dad play men's league on Friday afternoons. He was like babysitting me, and I was just in the crowd as a 6-year-old, looking at all these banners and learning the NHL teams. And there's something so simple about the wings, and like other examples of like logos I didn't understand at the time. I never understood the Sabres logo in the '90s, the kind of snarling buffalo. I just didn't see exactly the intricacies of it. I just thought it was this big fucking cloud of whatever it was. But you kind of just are like, oh, okay, like, oh yeah, oh, the wing wheel, like whatever. And just the beauty of it, the simplicity of it, I do really take with, because it's just got the one, like the red jerseys like especially just have the kind of base trim of white at the bottom, and one kind of on the mid to high elbow kind of one white stripe as well. And it's just like the legends of the game, like Gordy and Delvecchio and Abel and Lindsay and Kelly, that wore it when they were tearing up the regular season and winning 4 cups in the early '50s, all the way to pretty much when Yzerman came back and rescued the Wings from the dead Wings era. Just so simple but brilliant, and there's success there. And you could say it's ugly and you could say it's boring, but it's like some people would. I'm not saying necessarily you guys would, because some people are like, oh, what else is there to it? But that's what you need in a jersey at the time when there's only 6 teams in the league. What's going to make you stand out? Both Montreal and Detroit were red and white as kind of main colors, and the Blackhawks had some red in their jerseys as well throughout the white and black schemes they had. But Detroit is the kind of the true red team. They're named the Red Wings, and I am really smitten with that classic jersey because I kind of grew up wearing it just playing minor hockey. And then my second least favorite jersey, this kind of maybe it shouldn't be second worst, maybe it could be more towards the 4th, 5th, but I just can't get over it. And while I appreciate what they're trying to do, it's still disgusting. It is the Kings Burger King jersey that they wore only in 1995-96, Gretzky's last season there before he was traded at the deadline to the Blues. I kind of have it popped up on the side of my screen here. It's just ghastly, because the Kings, right around the time that they got Gretzky, they changed from their royal blue, the purple, basically, which it looks like to us, the royal blue and gold, to the kind of just black with that Kings, like just right there, that they had some success and went to the finals in '93. And then what they tried to do, and all these teams are kind of doing these third alternate jerseys in the mid '90s, love or hate them. A couple of them pop up on our list, I'm sure. But when they did the Burger King jersey in question with that purple and gold beard, they tried to bring that back, the purple and gold, or the royal blue and gold, mixed with the black and white and gray of the current times, because the jerseys they're rocking for the last 8 years prior to doing this third jersey, that's a stark contrast from the royal blue and gold. But they tried to meld them in a '90s fashion, so they had their regular logo at the time on their shoulders. Now they had the Burger King on the breast, then they had this crazy sweeping gray line that kind of went like a descending parabola like that, with like a wacky '90s purple and gold font, and it just did not jive well. It's too much coming at you at once. It was for such a short time, and it was during a period of limited success. It's just an eyesore, because that Burger King logo has never graced the presence of any of their other jerseys. It's like you dip your toe in a scalding pot of water or something like that, and you're like, oh, that's bad, fuck this. That's exactly what I think of and feel when I see that jersey. And the great one wore it, and it's just like, oh my god, man, just disgusting. What do you guys think about that?
The weird thing about the Burger King jersey is, I think if they didn't do the weird thing with like the sash, that logo is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it's like the way they used it on the jersey just makes the whole thing look bad.
It just kind of looks like a mishmash of things put on a jersey.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like I genuinely like looking at it. I think there's something there with that logo. Like I think that logo could have been cool, maybe as like an alternate logo or something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like the things that throw off that jersey to me are like the weird sash thing that goes down. It feels like a bunch of just random parts put together.
Yeah, and like the color choice too, between the purple and the gold and the gray and the kind of the hues of the sash descending and kind of making it more like watercolor. Whenever a team kind of has a stark contrast in logos through time, if you're used to something and they come up with this brand new thing permanently, it's always kind of hated at first, and maybe you grow fond of it through time. But when it's so brief and so stark, and then they revoke it, it's just bad memories, bad vibes all around.
Yeah, and like and just more towards your love jersey, like Detroit. I mean, there's something about an original six uniform, sweater, jersey that I think everyone can kind of universally agree on. They just get it right. You know what I mean? Like any one of them, I'm not going to list off anymore because I don't want to give away picks just in case. But especially with the Red Wings, it's a unique logo, a unique emblem, simplistic design, and so much history behind the jersey. Whereas like your Kings pick is the exact opposite. It's remembered for all the worst reasons because it's just such a brief moment in time. It's like you said, it's like the team or the organization kind of realized that that was just a really fucking dumb idea. But yeah, I love both picks, man. I think the Red Wings one, it's not in my top five, but I really do appreciate the pick. It's one that we all grew up with, even in the 90s, in the 2000s, being the forefront of hockey, so you're always you always have that respect for it. But yeah, I think both are very good picks. I love the Red Wings, the bright red and the white. They mix well when they swap the logo colors too, like when it's away. I guess when it's away and it's, depending on which era we're talking about, but away, it's all red, the white logo. Home, it's all white. It's the red logo. Just always mixes well.
Hey man, I'm glad you appreciate it. I wish I could say the same about your least favorite. Derek?
Jesus. Yeah, for the best, I'm gonna continue the original six theme. I think Robbie kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's like the original six, is part of what makes them so fondly remembered, and what makes that era of hockey so fondly remembered is the fact that they are probably arguably some six of the best sweaters, uniforms, jerseys, whatever you want to call them, ever. And I mean, I don't think you can name any original six team if you put up a top five list of best uniforms in hockey. No one's going to complain about it. So for my pick, my number two is the New York Rangers, specifically the blue one. Because it's amazing. I think too, it's the thing that sells the Rangers one for me is when you look at like I'm specifically picking the original six era for this one, although it didn't really change much between then and 94. Although there's that weird Esposito era where they had the shield logo on it, but we're gonna ignore that because that jersey might have debate for being on the bottom five too. But like it looked good all the time, but like the thing that really sells it to me is how amazing the colors and stuff pop on it in like some of those like colorized photos from like the original six era. It's just one, like the diagonal Rangers like is amazing. It's become a staple of like hockey designs. Maybe not so much in the NHL, but like you see like a lot of like minor hockey teams and stuff too. And it's something that is super unique to the sport of hockey to just have the name written diagonally across. And obviously the Rangers are the first team to do that. The color scheme really pops. And I think the one thing too that really makes it also stand out for me, if you look at the uniform as a whole, is breaking it up with the red pants. I think is amazing because it actually like it gives your eyes that little bit of the break. Where I think, as much as I love like the Leafs and the Red Wings, it's something like when they wear the dark, it's just like that's a lot of blue and that's a lot of red going like head to toe all the way down. But I think that Rangers kind of found that super unique, like the way to break it up. I think even like looking at the way the jerseys now, it's like they got the unique number font where it's kind of got that like the red with a little bit of the white like drop shadow behind it, which looks cool. The name on the back isn't just straight across. It's it's got that little like kind of curve to it. Just all around. I mean, I know like we're maybe talking about some teams that had some lean years, but still kind of had cool jerseys. The Rangers might be the epitome of that, because they always looked great, even though they didn't have the most success. But yeah, there's something about it. It looks classy. It looks like it's from the original six there. It's they still wear it today for a reason. It still looks good. You don't need to change it. Just kind of leave it at that. And my second worst, I'm going with back to 07. 07 sucked for jerseys. But we're going with the Thrashers, the double blue weird thing that had Atlanta written down the arm. Even though none of their other jerseys were these colors, they went with double blue for some reason. Why do you think it's a good idea to write your city down the sleeve of your jersey? I don't really understand that. I'm not even, you know what though, but it's like I look at it and I hate it, and it's like I'm sure there's an argument to be made that it's not even the worst Thrasher jersey ever, but I just hate it, so I'm putting it at 2. I'm sure you can debate that, like that brown one that had Thrashers and the player's number in front of it, which is always bad. Don't do that. But it was just like the yeah. So that's it. I don't know, the complete opposite of the Rangers, where it's like you had a design that stood the test of time versus a team that really struggled with their identity, I found at points, and then eventually got relocated. So, like that's the class. That's what a classic jersey and a classic brand can get you when you don't really know what you're doing. It's tough to market that team.
That's a pretty good pick. Yeah, that's a tough jersey to
Dude,
any of their jerseys, really. Maybe their white original is the only one relatively tolerable.
Nice ones. When they first came into the league, I mean, the logo is a little wonky. But the actual design of the jerseys weren't too bad. I felt like when it got to the point of like the guy like Chelios and stuff showing up, it's like they were just like, I feel it's like they're just like throwing something at a wall, like, and seeing what sticks at that point. And none of it did stick. And then they moved to Winnipeg. So
You know what's funny is I actually had the Rangers as one of, like, on the fringe of one of my most hated jerseys.
oh yeah?
Yes.
You don't like the Rangers? Wow.
And their kit's very nice, but there's something about the Rangers. When I look at a Rangers jersey, and every other original 6 team has so much history, so much lore behind it, I look at the Rangers and I'm just like, you're like the red-headed stepchild of the original 6. You did nothing. You have no brand.
Bad. They had some lean years.
And it's just kind of like your whole branding is just being based in New York, right? So, I mean, I guess great jersey, organization, I just lose respect.
Yeah, no, hey, we're not here to debate how good these teams are.
And that's
we're not debating that. We're debating how good they look.
Exactly.
The Rangers might be the team that really proves that the saying "look good, feel good, play good" does not apply to everybody. That's all I'm getting at there. Because I also have other bad teams on this my top 5. So we're not done with the bad teams in my top 5.
That's the thing about jerseys. Subjectively, some people like it, some people don't. I dislike it more than I like it, but it's nowhere near my top 5. But I understand. I'm glad you're having a good time.
Well, I think I know why Robbie hates the Rangers jersey. It's because it's the same color as Montreal.
Yeah, it's the same color scheme. So it's just like trauma almost. You know,
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's it. That's why he hates the Jets and the Capitals too.
Yeah, that's also true. I don't like those teams either. So my third most loved is probably at this point in the NHL landscape, the most controversial jersey of all at the moment. And that is the red Chicago Blackhawks jersey. And I'm talking about the one Stan Mikita, Bobby Hall, Tony O. It's a great looking jersey. I know a lot of people don't like it now, but it's so clean. It's classy. And it is, and I don't want to speak for anyone, but I feel like the organization feels like they're paying homage to someone rather than trying to use that as more of a, like a Cleveland Indians type deal where it's disrespectful. I don't think that this logo is disrespectful in any way, but then again, it's not based around my culture or me even. But there is a backstory to the logo, and I love that backstory. I love the colorway of the logo, or rather and the logo looks awesome too, by the way. But I love the colorway of the jersey. Love the history. Original 6, I feel like that's going to be a consistent theme on this list. And like we all said, like, it's right, it's great, it's historic, it's traditional. It's all of these buzzwords that you would want to use when describing a great jersey. It's a great jersey. It's an iconic logo. And I can understand that some people don't like it. But for me personally, I look at that jersey and I just think of class. I think of an organization that has had its down years, but for the most part, it really stayed consistent throughout its whole entire run. And those jerseys to me, specifically the red ones, I like the white ones, but those jerseys to me are just chef's kiss. Love them. Love them. And for hated, when I think of these jerseys, I think of O.J. Simpson.
Oh.
They've given us some good things like Ilya Kovalchuk, Mark Savard, some really good players who've gone on to do some really special things. But also when I think of these jerseys, I think of manslaughter. And that is piggybacking off of Derek's last pick, the Atlanta Thrashers maroon. It's maroon jerseys. Terrible logos, terrible color schemes, horrible organization, and to cap it all off, murder. It's a tough way to add this into the list, but it really is a bad jersey with bad mojo, bad vibes, bad organization, and a bad situation that just kind of haunts a single player. I'm not going to say his name, but he knows who he is. And rest in peace, Dan Snyder.
So these are their like original dark ones, you're saying, the maroon ones? Yeah.
So yeah, those are.
See, that's another example of a logo that I never really got. Because you'll see, like, they use two different logos. Their white one, they use the Thrasher and the kind of Typhoon thing, but the dark jerseys, it's that kind of whatever the hell that is. You know what I'm saying? Like the kind of, what is this? What is that?
Who knows?
Oh, the T, like it's supposed to look like a T, I guess.
Is that a T or is that like a bird?
I think
Like
it's supposed to look like a T.
Is that a big beaked nosed creature? Like, what the hell is that?
I think it's supposed to be like the wings of the bird and make it look like a T, like because the team's called the Thrashers.
And you call it maroon. Like the maroon is all in the shoulders and the sleeve and a little bit in the stripe at the bottom, but it's mostly like blue.
Yeah.
Dark blue. And it's too much. It's yellow. It's ugly. I respect the pick. Yeah. And the socks,
I think at the end of the day, like, ultimately part of the Thrashers' downfall was that their branding was pretty bad.
Yeah. But yeah, those were my picks. Maybe the most controversial picks of all. And I lumped them together. So yeah. There you go, boys.
So my third for most loved is actually Robbie's one. So it was, the Toronto Maple Leafs, just classic. I think part of it is that they are my favorite team. So that does actually I feel like that plays a little bit of a factor into this. I'm going to kind of go slightly off of what Robbie did say, though. I'm going to say I like the white one better. Just because, again, kind of for the same reason I said I like the Rangers. It kind of breaks the white with the blue pants. I think kind of breaks it up, makes it look a little bit cleaner as an overall look. And then, I love the 90s one. I love the original 6 era. I know the Leaf has changed over time. I'm not a huge fan of like the 70s one that had like the white arms, the white or blue arms. And then that kind of like that like Reebok Edge 07 era one where they didn't back to 07. 07's a bad year for jerseys. But it was like that Reebok Edge kind of 07 era one where they didn't put the stripes on the waist, kind of doesn't work. But other than that, pretty much any Leafs jersey throughout history, I think you can kind of put on this list. My two personal favorites will just be the original 6 era ones and the early 90s, like the Gilmore, Sundin, Clark kind of era jerseys. So those would be my two personal favorites, but go with any Leafs, I'm happy. Worst. Do you guys remember when the Dallas Stars had that weird constellation that kind of looked like a uterus on their jersey?
Mooterus.
The Mooterus? Yeah, that one. And I don't think I need to really explain it beyond the description of the jersey. Being like, it's bad. It's bad.
What was it actually? Was it like a bull's head almost?
It was supposed to be like, I think, what's astrology? What is it, like Taurus or something?
Yeah,
it was supposed to be like that constellation, but they drew it and it had like the horns down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So people always said it looked like a uterus. Yeah. So it was like, it didn't work.
Well, that's what the constellation traces essentially.
Yeah, like I get that it maybe was accurate to the constellation, but that doesn't mean you should put it on. Like, I don't look at hockey jerseys and be like, I want like scientific accuracy. Like, I don't think this mask fits a duck's head properly, but I still think it looks cool. And what
a stretch too, right? Like, do you think the choice in constellation to the Taurus really just stems from Texan culture and bull riding and stuff? Because that has nothing to do with the stars. as we
No,
know
other
them.
than the fact that a constellation is made out of stars.
They could have made the Big Dipper a spoon and the
Yeah.
Spooderus, right, instead of the Mooterus.
Yeah.
You know, like
make a constellation out of a hockey stick. Like, I don't know why. Like, make up something. Like,
but yeah, the Stars used this. So I'll tell you right now, this is my number 4 least favorite. Your number 3 least favorite is my number 4. So
yeah.
we are very close in that regard. I'm glad there's overlap. So it saves us having to talk about it twice. So I'll just say right now, I'm with you. They used it from 03 to 06. So just those 2 years, because the lockout was wedged in between. Thank goodness they didn't use it for more than 2 years. Modano wore it though. Brendan Morrow wore it. So like, this is coming off of their kind of great success from 99 Cup and being in the playoffs and being in the thick of the playoffs in the late 90s, early 2000s. This is kind of the Marty Turco is now the head honcho, and they aren't contenders as much anymore. And I guess they may want to shake it up. But it's the only time I've ever seen red in a Dallas Stars jersey, because there is red on the outline of the sleeve and the base of the torso. It's ugly. So I'm with you, man.
Yeah, it's an ugly jersey. Of course, I love your favorite jersey. Like, that's just without a doubt a given. So I mean, I like both picks. I like both picks. We do need more jerseys that have genitalia on it, though. I don't think we have that well yet, and I don't think this was a great representation. So I do think we do need something else.
Maybe the Seattle Kraken will deliver for you.
Have a little testicle or something like that. Yeah.
Oh yes, that would be tremendous. Just hide it somewhere in the logo, like Disney did with like the Little Mermaid. It's like have little penis.
Or the Lion King or something.
Yeah. Yes.
Bring back the ducks, Disney. You can
Put a little pecker on the duck. Yeah.
Oh no.
This children's show's getting dark now.
This is bad.
Well, Peter, feel free to take over.
Okay. Yeah. My third favorite and least favorite. So yeah, the Mooterus is my 4th least favorite. So my third favorite is probably the wackiest and could easily be seen as one of the ugliest jerseys, depending to some. But for me, given the time and the effort it must have taken to actually make this into a sweater, I am all for it. And it's the farthest back I'm reaching. This isn't the original, but this is the version they wore in the 30s. It's the New York Americans striped jersey. I love it, especially
with
just when you think about
stars and stuff.
Yeah, the version I'm talking about in particular, they wore from 30 to 38, and that is, it's blue up here, not red, but still red and white below, because it gets the flag right. You know, it gets the blue and stars and then the red and white. Like, that's much better than having red up here and kind of more blue down below. It's inversed. It's almost like a reverse retro as their original jersey. But here in the 30s, and what's sad about it is they sucked all throughout the 30s. They were pretty much always dead last. I think they made the playoffs once in the 30s thanks to Roy Waters, and they were the shite of the league, and then ultimately dissolved, leading to the original 6 era. They spent their last year in Brooklyn, but by then they had totally basic, boring beige jerseys, which probably one of the ugliest ones ever. Didn't make my bottom list, but third favorite all time, definitely their home jerseys with the blue stars up here and the red and white stripes below. It's so much going on. I think there's one at the Hall in the vintage section, decrepit, falling apart, tearing at the seams, but the wool, the sweater, how it must have been embroidered, really, really intricate. And I got to admire it because it's the wackiest one of any of the jerseys that were going on at the time. They really went for it, and it really, really defines the team name, the New York Americans, who were the original New York NHL club. They existed 1 year before the Rangers came into Madison Square Garden. The first ever game at Madison Square Garden in 1925 was the Americans against the Habs. And I think the Habs won 2-1. But Tex Rickard, boxing promoter, like, New York Americans, rah, rah, nationalistic, not like I'm an American patriot, but what a jersey for a team called the New York Americans. So I'm for it. I know it's very ugly to some. I get it, but I like it. Tough titty. As for my third least favorite, you're not going to like this after all the Mighty Duck talk, but I'm not for Wild Wing coming through the ice. I'm not. The cyan, teal, aqua, whatever color, It's like,
Eggplant
you know
and jade.
how,
Get it right. There's no need to be sarcastic like this, Beta.
well,
It's
there's very
eggplant and
little
jade. Get it
eggplant
right.
in it. There's very little eggplant. It's mostly the jade, I guess. Yeah, sure, jade, and the white kind of going up here. And just the logo is so hokey. A couple episodes ago, we were talking about, Robbie, you said you dislike seeing people come to the hall wearing a Charlestown Chiefs jersey or a Youngblood jersey or a jersey based off of a film. It's like, have a little bit more respect. You're at the Hall of Fame. Wear something kind of more serious if you're going to wear something at all. It's a gimmick. It's their third season in the league, the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, or the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. It's kind of like when Vegas, and it's their fourth season in the league, and people are on Vegas's tail because they're trying all these alternate jerseys, the red and the gold. Whether you like those or not, people are saying it's too soon to be trying all this stuff. The Ducks just threw all this stuff at the fan and tried to see what would stick. This one did not. It lasted one season. Some people say it's one of the ugliest of all time. Some people who love the series and the franchises, the lore behind it, love it, such as yourselves. That's cool. I love what you're wearing, Derek. Love the originals like that. That's fantastic. I agree that when they changed to just the Ducks and they won the cup, ugly jerseys ever since. The one you're wearing right there, the original, is the best one they ever had. But Wild Wing breaking through the ice in the mid-90s is the hokiest, gimmickiest cartoon shit I've ever seen grace the NHL, and they should be ashamed of themselves. I could have put this 1 or 2. You're lucky I put it 3. How dare they?
Wow.
Sue me.
I should, man. I'm listening to this list. You apparently have no taste at all. So the Wild Wing jersey is fantastic. And if you can't appreciate that, I just don't know what to tell you, man. I think Wild Wing is the coolest mascot in NHL history because he's an actual hockey player and they can actually dress him up as a goalie. He plays goalie in the All-Star game effectively, unlike Carlton, who just kind of sits there and doesn't have any goalie pads or anything. This is an actual thing, Robbie. You're looking at me like I don't know. They used to do mascot games at the All-Star game. And like Wild Wing would be the goalie, and Carlton, for some reason, on the Leafs would be the other team's goalie.
Well,
Don't you hear how dumb this sounds? Like a duck and a bear playing goalie. Like, whatever. Like, where's the hockey? Like, this is stupid. It's a stupid jersey.
Well, hey, man, you know what? If you want to defend the city of Anaheim from like aliens from Puck World, you can deserve to be on a jersey. Beta doesn't even get that reference.
I don't. Yeah, I don't care. Like,
You don't care. You gotta watch the.
It's a gimmick.
Disney
It's
Plus, man. Watch the
Disney
Ducks
trying to be
show.
cute and trying to get us as kids to like it, which it worked on many occasions.
It did work. It did.
This was just like an unnecessary alternate jersey too early into the franchise. They had no success to prove that it was going to be cool in any way. It was their third season, and they had Solani would come in later. They had Korea. They're on their way to trying to do something great. It's just so and the fact that I'm even saying like what you're wearing is great because that is still the cartoon hokiness that leads to what like Wild Wing breaking through the ice with a cartoon stick. Oh my god, dude.
It's amazing. How many other teams have their mascot fully fleshed out on their jersey? So it's outstanding. I don't see what you're complaining about here, Beta.
Well, I think I made it pretty clear what I'm complaining about.
I think it's interesting. Looks, I know obviously a lot of people do hate that jersey. I find it's so like they brought it back. Like, is that one of those jerseys though that kind of falls into the category of it's so bad it's actually really good now?
Kind of.
Yeah, I don't really have much love for that version of the jersey either. I just am very indifferent towards it. I have strong feelings for, the original Wild Wing crested jersey, but when it comes to the breakthrough of the ice, I was just like, it's cool to see once in a while, but I think as a jersey, it's in its rightful place as forgotten and not used anymore. So to continue the theme from my picks of kind of wacky, I guess, cartoon-based logos, I really love this jersey, and it's the mid-90s Kachina Coyotes throwbacks. The black ones with kind of like the red and green trim with the wacky Coyote logo always reminded me of Crash Bandicoot for some reason. Just a great logo, very funky. I didn't do really much research into like the roots of the logo, but I'm sure it's tied in, somehow to Arizona, and obviously they probably have a lot of coyotes there. I think it's a shame what they've done with the purple ones that they wear. Those ones are hideous. That also bear those same logos. But yeah, I love those ones. Roenick, Kachuk, I think even Doan wore it for a period of time too. He got to wear it at some points of his career. He's been there forever. He was there forever, so probably. I just like the look of it. It's like,
Doan was a Jet, so yeah, he wore it.
yeah. So I mean,
Because it's so wacky. And sorry if I interrupted you before you finish your thought. I vibe with it. It's not my list, but I vibe with it because, like, much like the Ducks and any other team in the 90s were horny to throw out third jerseys, the Desert Dog kind of camouflages the Kachina from its excellence, because the Desert Dog, I feel like, as an alternate jersey, the green, you know what I'm saying? And the just the whole novelty of the cactus in the bottom with the canyon and the moon.
Yeah.
That one masks the Kachina from really excelling, because that kind of takes the eyesore, the brunt of the eyesore for the Coyotes in the 90s. Whereas the Kachina, which they more often, is more underrated.
it's just such a shame that they've gone the way of just boring, just like the plain coyote howling, the kind of like darkish red. I don't even know what the color of that red is, but like it's just boring. It's just a boring jersey. It's a boring team, you know. But those jerseys they had Roenick, very exciting players. Like everyone hated Kachuk at that time. Just a great period of time for them as a whole. I just love those jerseys. Love the logos. And like I said, always reminded me of Crash Bandicoot for whatever reason. My fourth most hated jersey is a team that eliminated the Leafs in the 2000, I think it's 2 playoffs, the semifinals. And that's the Carolina Hurricanes. Their jersey, their logo, to me, and we were talking about genitals, this is kind of around that same spectrum where their logo looks like a butthole. And I hate it. I hate their perimeter, like their boarding. It's all like squiggly stuff. It's like, it just really doesn't make that much sense of a jersey to me. It's a terrible logo. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say about it. It looks like a butthole, and when you look like a butthole, you don't really attract my eye. I don't like looking at buttholes. That's what I have to say.
Oh man, I actually really like the Hurricanes jersey. I'll go the opposite way. I actually really like that one. I mean, nowhere near top 5 to me, but I actually like it. I like that they have like the hurricane warning flag as like their striping on like the waist and stuff. I think that's a cool touch. I actually do really enjoy the Hurricanes jersey. I think Robbie just gets mad when teams beat the Leafs.
That might be it. Maybe like a lot of my list is just trauma-based picks.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like the Habs, I feel like I'm going to have an aneurysm. The Ducks took away my childhood. The Thrashers, someone literally took someone else's life. I mean, Carolina Hurricanes take away pride and joy as a kid again. So, I mean, a lot of it's trauma-based for me. I'm an emotional person. So, I mean, when I see the butthole, I get, I pucker my own butthole. That's what I do. So, that's
great heavens.
Yeah. So the Kachina Coyote, great look. The butthole Hurricane, not a great look. Did you ever imagine if they named a hurricane butthole? Right? Hurricane butthole.
Sure. I'm sure someone's going to do it.
I'm going to have to like do a tally count on how many times you said butthole, just like Derek said like there, man. Holy smokes. It's a lot of butthole.
Like it's just like the same way we look at Hurricane Katrina. Could you imagine instead of Hurricane Katrina, it's called Hurricane Butthole, and for the rest of everyone's life, we are traumatized by Hurricane.
Dude, Robbie is trying really hard to make sure we never are allowed to make one of these podcasts again.
I think Hurricane Butthole has a nice ring to it.
I don't even know what to say, man.
I have nothing either. I don't.
No wonder there's no rebuttal for rebutthole. I mean, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, those were my fourth.
All right.
For you to continue with your lists. I just went on a tangent there about.
I guess I got my 4s here. So 4 most loved jersey. We're going with. Personally, this franchise I think is kind of weird because they've came in the 70s and they've worn different color schemes, completely different jerseys. But I think they kind of nailed it with this one. And I'm going back to the early 90s, the Pavel Bure era of Vancouver Canucks when they got to the 94 Cup final, the skate, the black, the gold and red jersey. I just think it's the best Canucks jersey in my opinion. I think it is one of those jerseys that kind of is like it's a really 90s feel to it, but at the same time, like it looks super clean. I love the skate. I love the Canucks written in the blade. The color scheme works really well, and realistically, the franchise probably had their most success that they've had as a franchise with these jerseys too, which I think kind of just adds to it. And it's like the Canucks kind of go back and forth, bunch of different color schemes. They've worn the green and blue that's really associated with the Pacific Northwest and a lot of the sport teams out there. They had that like Marcus Naslund era of I guess like that shade of red and blue jersey as well. But this to me is my personal favorite Canucks one. I absolutely love it, and this is one that is literally like there's not a whole lot of emotional attachment on it. It's just other than that, like I really like Pavel Bure as a kid, but like it's just one of those jerseys I'm like I just think it looks really cool. I think it's the best jersey the Canucks have ever worn. So I'm putting it at 4 on my list, and then 4 for my worst is we're going with the third jersey that the New York Islanders wore between 2011 and 2014, which was like I don't even know how to describe it. It was black, blue, gray, and orange. It had Islanders written like a basketball jersey, and it had like the number underneath it with like the original logo made. It's just an absolute abomination. I find like people bring up like that fisherman jersey a lot when they're talking about the worst jerseys and stuff. And I'm like, the fisherman jersey, at least I feel like tried. Like at least I think they tried to do something cool with that or whatever. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really work out that well, especially when you kind of have a team that won 4 Stanley Cups in a row and their look is maybe a little bit more iconic. But like this one's just, I think like it was literally like I don't even know what happened. It was like, hey guys, we need a third jersey. What can you throw together? And they just took like the crappy jersey that the Dallas Stars were already wearing that kind of had the same thing to it, and like just like Microsoft painted different colors into like the gaps on the jersey. I don't know. I think it's terrible. It's a shame that John Tavares was forced to wear that. That's probably why he wanted to leave Long Island so badly.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And that's a deep find too, because it's relatively recent. And obviously, a lot of teams now have 5, 6, 7 variations of jerseys. And yeah, this is one that they used for a few years, just about a decade ago. And it is very different and 4 colors all fighting each other. Black wins. And yeah, you're right about the basketball thing, how the numbers on the front and the font kind of curves over it. And it sucks.
It does. I think like because the Dallas Stars did this for a bit or whatever, where they had like the Dallas and then 14 underneath it would be like what Jamie Benn would wear. And then the Thrashers did it. They had that other one. I feel like this whole list could have been Thrasher jerseys. But they had one that looked like that as well. I think there's a couple like American college teams that kind of use it. I've never seen a hockey jersey use that and make it look good. Like, don't put your team name, including the Ducks too. Don't put your team name horizontal across the chest of a hockey jersey.
To touch on your Canucks, those are the only Canucks jerseys I like. I don't like, like they went through like that phase where they just had the stick in the rectangle. And it's just like,
that's okay. Again, back to the Canucks though too. The Vancouver written above the logo makes no sense either, and stuff when they did that for a little bit. I didn't like that. Horizontal text unless it's incorporated directly into the logo, like the Washington Capitals, let's say, or the Toronto Maple Leafs, even the New York Islanders, like regular logo, or like the Kings or the Oilers, like incorporate it into the logo. If it's separate from the logo, it's not going to look good. And I think that's going to come up on my 5th pick too for the worst jersey. But
go ahead.
All right. So you already know my 4th least favorite is the Mooterus, as Derek alluded to. So I won't need to talk about that anymore. But as for my 4th most favorite, We made a quick reference to this jersey a few episodes ago. It popped up briefly, and this is the original teal San Jose Shark 1990 jersey. I dig it. I love it. I know they were a miserable franchise the first few years into the 90s, and they've snuck by with a couple lucky playoff series wins in 94 and 95. They beat the Wings in 94, 95, first round upset over the Flames. So they did have a little bit of playoff success, but then overall the 90s pretty futile for the Sharks. The first expansion team pretty much since the WHA joined the league in 79, from 79 till 91. A couple relocations like the Colorado Rockies going to New Jersey and what have you, but no new team joined. San Jose was the 22nd team that joined for the first time in 12 years. We had a new amount of teams in the league, and what they graced us with was pretty sexy. And this is the road jersey, the teal jersey with the gray and black and white stripes at the bottom and on the sleeve. It was the 75th season of the NHL in 91-92. So they also had that patch on top, which also kind of added to a little pep in your step. And we were talking about the butthole Carolina, Artur Zerbe ruining your dreams, Robbie. He was the first goalie to really shine for the fledgling franchise. And I always think about Artur Zerbe rocking that teal with those beat up road hockey pads that he wore his entire career. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It would be hard for people to say it's not nice. Like the Sharks have had a lot of nice jerseys and a few variations over the years, but their original one, it is very 90s. And I think of it fondly, and then kind of by the late 90s, early 2000s, they had the more sweeping gray in the sleeve. And then they even had those black alternates. And then they've pretty much been rocking the same kind of jersey for almost a decade now with the more angry Shark, which kind of made its appearance towards the end of the 2000s decade. But the original Shark just chewing on the stick with that hue of teal that they kind of got away with towards the end of the decade. Yeah, the 90s Sharks jerseys, they do it for me.
Yeah, so I actually had that as my sixth one.
Ooh.
And I was thinking of it was like if somebody else says something else that's on the favorite list, then I was like, oh, maybe I'll just bump it and do the Sharks. Yeah, I love that jersey. Like I said at the start of the show, I think the original 6 and the early 90s, the best eras for hockey jerseys. So a lot of the stuff that was created there, a lot of the team branding, I'm a huge fan of. So love the Sharks. Love teal. I think like the NHL, especially like you kind of look at the league, there's a lot of like black, red, and blue or whatever. And it's like I think in a league where a lot of teams kind of wear similar-ish colors, I think even now, I think the teal still kind of pops for San Jose. So big fan of that jersey.
Yeah, and I always get reminded, like, to me, that jersey, and I don't have too much to say about it, but to me, I always like how them and the Jags kind of had similar color schemes, and they both, well, the Jags had early success, the Sharks didn't. But I always just found that color, they're slightly different, but I always found that type of color very attractive to the eye. And like Derek said, it is very unique. And like what you said, Beta, it is very sexy. And
I said that? Oops.
I don't think you did, but you've said sexy in this podcast. So I want to reiterate that you've said sexy.
What they graced us with was pretty sexy. And this is the road jersey, the teal jersey. Cool.
But it was after the butthole comments initially.
Yeah. Teal, buttholes, and genitalia are all sexy, depending on who you are. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I feel like I'm derailing this podcast a little bit. But I will say that's a good pick. And it transitions nicely to my final picks that have nothing to do with that jersey. So,
all right.
So my fifth final favorite jersey is the 80s Sabres home jersey, the crest, the buffalo, and the actual Sabres ahead of it. I hate that they went to like the weird black afterwards. It's nice. It's traditional. I think of Pat LaFontaine. I think of Dominic Hasek in his blue weird helmet and his coho pads. We did an episode on the Dominator earlier, and he was rocking the same exact look. It's a beautiful jersey. It's simplistic. And I like the 82, 83 onwards version where it's got like the blue kind of piping at the bottom and on the sleeves. I do like their away version of it, but I like the home look a little better just because there's more of an emphasis on the logo. And I love that logo. I guess they're rocking it now, aren't they?
That's my fifth one.
Yeah.
Is it really?
That was the one that I was like, you know what? I was debating between the Sharks and the Sabres, and I ultimately went Sabres on that.
Like the 80s whites as well?
Well, like they wore those from like the 70s into the early 90s. Then they changed to the I guess to the Billy Goat Hasek kind of ones. And then they went to then they had a whole bunch of abominations. And then
Like
they've
those
never
red
brought
ones,
it back. Sorry?
the red ones with just the swords as the logo.
Yeah, and then there was the one with the slug, the Buffalo
Yeah, the slug's
one.
brutal. Slug's the
one
worst
that had
one.
like the blue cape on it. So there was like a bunch of those. But yeah, I love the Sabres jersey. I love that they brought them back. I think to me, Robbie, like I know you mentioned the logo popping. I too like the white one. Again, I think the look of having the pants kind of break it up, I think is the best look in hockey. To just have something there to break up the jersey, so it's not just like one color from head to toe. But I think in saying that though, it makes the logo pop. I love the fact that their logo is literally like a graphic representation of their team name.
Yeah.
It's just a buffalo and sabers. I love it that it's so like just a literal graphic represent. It's like hieroglyphics as a sports logo, and it's great.
And
Very
my,
true.
That was my pick too.
and and it's a great jersey. My final least favorite jersey, number 5, is the reverse retro New Jersey Devils. Green primary color, red on the side, green, white, red socks. I didn't like it initially when green wasn't the main color. It was kind of like the shoulders were green. I didn't like it then. Didn't make any sense to me when they rocked it then. It's always a shame that I see Marty Brodeur rock that, and I'm just like, those are terrible colors, terrible colorway. And now that they've donned the full green as a reverse retro, disgusting, hideous, horrible. Has nothing to do with anything New Jersey. I don't know where they got the green. Maybe someone just really loves Christmas. But yeah, there's no New Jersey flair in there whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe someone else has some light on that, but I just think they're hideous jerseys. And that's my final least favorite jersey.
I think a lot of the reverse retro jerseys were very hit and miss, but I feel like there was nothing in between. It was like it either looked great or it was hideous.
Yeah.
And there's no like, that's okay reverse retro jersey. Why? Like, I think that's the one thing though too, right? Like why some of the reverse retro jerseys to me just look off.
Yeah.
Because like even like Montreal or whatever, it's like that doesn't look like the way it was designed to look.
Yeah.
Like it's like I feel like when like people are designing a jersey or any sports uniform, as like they're designing it with like the colors intended to be where the colors are. Right. And it's like I feel like when you flip it, it doesn't necessarily always translate super well. Right. Like, I mean, I don't know, just kind of looking at some jerseys on my screen here. It's like picture like the Calgary Flames jersey, primarily yellow instead of red. Right. Like it probably looks weird. I mean, I know it's not what they did for their reverse retros and stuff, but like there's some of it. Even like weirdly, like the Kings jersey, the Kings reverse retro, where it's like the Forum blue, but it's on like the Gretzky era.
Yeah.
One or whatever, it looks off. Like there's something that just kind of looks off with it, but I don't know. That's just me. I wasn't a huge fan of most of the reverse retro jerseys.
Yeah. So like there's no real hatred towards it. I just think it's a really ugly jersey. I just don't like it. I don't get it. I don't get the green. Has nothing to do with the state. The early 2000s, like look they came up with afterwards is iconic. You know, just a great intimidating jersey period, but to put like the devil horns and green as your primary color just makes no sense to me. So yeah.
I think, yeah. So as I mentioned, I had the Sabres. Sabres were there for my fifth one. So completely agree with that. I kind of went with, I couldn't decide which one of these I hated more. So I'm going to say both of them. They were kind of like the Reebok templated weird, like you remember like in the like I guess it would be like 2000, like 8, 9, 10-ish.
Yes.
Era. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the Ottawa Senators wore similar jerseys that had like some random ass font. Tampa's just said Bolts across it, and Ottawa's just said Sens. Never do that ever again. They're horrendous. So they're probably the two worst jerseys either one of those franchises has ever worn.
Well, remember when Tampa Bay had like the weird
third jersey blue with the lightning everywhere?
Lightning? Yeah.
There's that one.
That was like when Wendell Clark played for them.
Yeah.
Or whatever. See, even that though, that is super ugly. Like the thing is like I think what I can appreciate about those is like, okay, you tried something unique. On these ones, I'm just like, you took like Times New Roman font and just wrote like, oh, I guess lightning's too long to put across the chest of the jersey, so it's like bolts.
Tried and true, baby. Tried and true Times New Roman.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like it's not exciting at all. It looks weird. It kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It's like unless you're incorporating it into an actual logo,
don't do it.
Horizontal text, don't do it. It doesn't look good.
I dig it. I dig it. Feel free to end yours off, Beta. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there. I like how so the 2008 similarities between the Bolts and the Sens. Good way to close it out as your least favorite. I myself, two historic franchises make up my fifth for favorite and least favorite. I never thought I would praise this franchise as being something of my favorites, but the Boston Bruins 1970s black jerseys are just tickle me fancy. You know, the Bobby Orr's final few years into the kind of big bad Bruins, Wayne Cashman, Terry O'Reilly, Peter McNabb, like when Don Cherry coached them, basically those black jerseys, because the difference between those black jerseys from the original 6 to the big bad Bruins eras of the 70s is they got a little bit more simple, and simple is always better. I mean, that's kind of an age-old saying, maybe not always true for jerseys, but here it was, because they didn't want to get any more fancy than they had to. In the 70s, much like the 90s, gift and a curse. Some of them are really big eyesores, but the Bruins, what they did to drop the yellow shoulder pads for just plain black with the same stripe pattern on the sleeves and on the bottom of the torso with the yellow, black, white, those 3 colors there, just speaks volumes. And they had success with it too. And just the way they played exemplified those jerseys. Not often can you really say that as a franchise, because it's not even the player's choice. It's not like players can really, you can't teach heart and you can't teach size. But the Bruins had the size and the heart to fit those jerseys better than any team I've ever seen in NHL history, quite frankly. So that's my 5th favorite. As for my 5th least favorite, briefly alluded to, I'm glad no one really dug into this too much more, because I'm glad I could just say this on my own. But those quick deviations the Rangers had in the 70s with the stripes on the shoulders, the Esposito era, you mentioned Derek early on when you were talking about the good Rangers jerseys throughout the original 6, that deviation that they only had from 76 to 78, right when Esposito joined the team, that's my 5th least favorite. It broke from tradition, didn't work. They realized that, they went back. Not much else to say than that. The Leafs in the 70s and the 80s, they had the opposite color on the shoulders, and love it or hate that, the Rangers basically just copied that, and it sucked. And the Rangers went on to the Cup final in 79, kind of right after they jumped back from that shield shoulder pattern thing. But it's 70s in a nutshell, and it just didn't really work for them. They were better off doing what they did.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the times like the jerseys that you kind of hate are the ones that you already love, and then they do something different to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't work. Like, I don't necessarily think that jersey is like trash or terrible, but it's also nowhere near as good as the traditional Rangers jersey.
Yeah.
Well, do we have any underappreciated jerseys you guys want to throw out there? The ones that I was thinking of, we could just kind of run through these ones. I was thinking of like the original St. Louis Blues jerseys, where there's kind of like a lighter blue.
Those are good, yeah.
And like the flared out logo instead of just like the solid brick, kind of more solid one they'd go to. And then the original Minnesota North Stars green jersey as well, where they have like the little yellow piping and the white piping at the bottom. Just think they're nice and clean. to kind of piggyback off the Sharks to kind of a different color than what's usually an NHL team color.
Yeah, I mean the North Stars own green
Yeah.
in NHL history for sure, and they own it nicely.
So those are mine, yeah.
Just like the Flyers do with orange, the team kind of has to be synonymous with that color. If we're doing our underappreciated, underrated as briefly as that, I have no shame saying mine right now. Like these are both kind of seen as ugly ones to history, but I dig it just because I'm weird. I'm like that. But the Islanders fisherman jersey I do really vibe with because we're talking about just crazy experimentation in the 90s. The Gorton's fisherman kind of thing, because Islanders logo in general, that's something that you kind of really have to look at clearly and understand. It's Long Island, the map of Long Island with the New York with the Y as a stick and then a puck. There's a lot going on, and then Islanders underneath the Long Island. Like, it's just a mound of shit is kind of what it is. And the fact that that's been their logo since they came into the league in 72, mid 90s, everyone's experimenting for better or for worse. This is a pretty bad jersey, but I respect the efforts to try to get this new logo in there for a couple years. The fisherman, it's cartoonish. It's 3D with the font, but the way that it kind of ripples, kind of like a rocky bluff heading into the lighthouse, and the Islander is there protecting it. Pretty cool. And yeah, a lot going on with the swirls. Much better than the Kings did with their sachets and the swirls with the Burger King one. Kind of similar in the sense of the hokiness, but I vibe with it. And the Islanders didn't get any better with it, and they only used it for a couple of years, and then it's been buried at the depths of the rocky sea. But good effort. And then my other underappreciated one, talked a lot about this team, but didn't mention these particular jerseys. I'm glad. Were the early 80s Vancouver Canucks, just with the whole yellow and black, the V. Pre-skate ones, post-puck and rectangle ones, because, they changed a whole shit ton. And this one in particular with because they went to the Cup final in 82 and were swept by the Islanders for their third straight. So there was success with these ones. The Roger Nielsen white towel, Tiger Williams, Stan Schmiel, Harold Snepps, Richard Brodeur, Ivan Boldarev. They had some good players. And these were their jerseys for about 8 years before they kind of went to that more basic black gold with the skate logo. That one's great too. But the V, pretty hideous. But if I were to see someone downtown wearing that now, that's a jersey I've grown fond of since. That I could be like, damn, that's tight. Respect to the Canucks and I'm speaking more of the yellow one than the black one, the home one, where it's more yellow at the base. I vibe with that.
My underrated ones. I had the Oilers Spawn jersey. I'm not sure if it really works as an Oilers jersey, but I think if you isolated that, it's actually a really cool jersey on its own. But I feel like because it kind of messed with the Oilers color scheme a lot, I don't think people really like it that much, but I dig it on its own. And my other one was the Penguins from the early 90s, when it kind of had the triangle penguin, and then the black one was the Pittsburgh down the side. The black one, obviously, I think it's just a little bit of like, there's some cool like random pop culture stuff associated with those. Obviously, like Snoop Dogg wore the black Pittsburgh one in a music video. And I think too, like if you guys ever see the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Sudden Death, yeah, amazing. Like, I don't know, do we count that as a hockey movie? Because it might be one of the better hockey movies ever made, even though it's not really a hockey movie. But I think it's kind of funny seeing like Jean-Claude Van Damme like throw down with the Penguins mascot in a random kitchen. And obviously, like, it's just such a weird movie. But I love it for that. And for that reason, it's like I feel like I always kind of have a little soft spot for this era of the Penguins jerseys. A couple other ones that I kind of had. I felt like the St. Louis Eagles as like a little pre-original 6-1. I feel like that's kind of underrated. And the Montreal Maroons, I feel like, is also an underrated one. Just because it's like there are a couple of those like pre-original 6-1s, and the Colorado Rockies I'll throw in there too. Just has an underrated look on a jersey.
Cool. Well, I mean, we pretty much got everything we wanted to in terms of jerseys off our chests. I feel like we've covered everything we wanted to cover. We covered the ones we love, the ones we hate, the ones we think need a little bit more shine. I really like doing these lists because I think it just breaks it up a little bit for us, and we can kind of be more adept and discuss like just random shit. Like never before would I be able to say butthole as many times as I did this podcast.
You're not going to be allowed to do it again either.
Why not?
I don't know. Why not? Why do you need to?
That's very true. I don't. But yeah, it's nice to break these things up. It's nice to do all of this, and I just like getting in debates with you guys. I don't know why. I love
Good
you,
fun. Yeah. It's
I
all
love-
love. It's
I
all
love
love.
but I also hate you guys at the same time. It's kind of a weird love-hate relationship when it comes to.
You're an angry person, Robbie.
I am
Speak for
not.
yourself, Robbie.
I'm passionate. That's what I like to boil it down as. Do you guys have any last words for the list? Any last words for the podcast? Any last messages towards jerseys in general?
NHL teams that are watching, any of those least 5 favorites from any of us, never wear them again, especially you Predators. Don't wear that mustard thing ever again, please. Thank you.
And Anaheim, you know what to do. Bring them back.
Bring it back, baby. Well, you can find CPR Classic Puck Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud, and of course, laymansports.com. For Mr. Beta, for Mr. Brissett, I'm Mr. Cameron. Apparently, I'm really mad versus passionate. Thanks for listening.